In this video, I'm going to talk about... Wait, let's start all over again. In this video, I'm going to talk about some of the aspects that I really enjoy about the hobby and kind of what got me into it in the first place. I'm kind of a little tired of scandals. Not going to go over prices and values and all that sort of stuff. Just going to talk about comic books up next on this video from Bronzeville Comics. Panelologist, this is Jim from Bronzeville Comics coming to you with another video. And before we get started, please like, comment, subscribe. That's always appreciated. Give us a follow on other socials, Instagram, Bronzeville_comics. I'm on Whatnot at Bronzeville_comics. We do sales every Monday night at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Taking a couple of weeks off, but we'll be back on Monday, January 8th. If you've not yet signed on to Whatnot, there is a link in the description of this video that will get you $10 off your first purchase, regardless of who it is with. There is also a link to my eBay store as well as my email. So, I've been off on vacation for the last week or so and been sorting through some comics, been sorting through some collections, and maybe taking a little bit more of an opportunity to read some comics. And kind of like a crossover there. So I just wanted to do something in terms of a video, like discussing what drew me to the hobby in the first place and what I still enjoy about it as a hobby, right? Because one of the things about most hobbies is you spend money on the hobby. You buy things, you pay for things. You know, if you're a golfer, you go golfing on the weekends and you have greens fees and equipment, etc. If, you know, you like the movies, you pay to go to the movies and get the popcorn and what have you. But comic books, there is that value aspect to it where you can let the hobby fund itself. But there's also the collecting aspect and the reading aspect. And there are things that we like. And a big part of it is that nostalgia. So I try to read all the comic books I get. Not all the comic books I get in collections. But when I pick up books and say, this is for my PC, it's put somewhere aside that I eventually intend to read it. Whether or not that will happen before my demise, I am not sure. But I put it as a collector who, you know, maybe a little OCD. I have a certain order. I don't just, you know, necessarily just pull out something and read it just because I like to. So I've been over the years, and it's become a running joke at my LCS. I get new books and I put them away behind, you know, next in order. And currently I'm about 13 and a half years behind in reading new comic books. Now, I also have, and anyone familiar with the channel knows that I've been collecting DC comics from 1972. So I put those in a couple boxes. You can actually see them on this top shelf over my shoulder here. Let's see. Yeah, right there and right there. Those are full of comic books from DC 1972. And I read them. So I kind of put them in order by month and then alphabetically by month. So I was going through, and when I pick up a new book, I just kind of put it in there. And I've read a bunch of them that I've already set aside, especially the early part of the year. But not all of them. And so I picked up a couple of books so when I read a new month, an old month of comics, right? So I just pulled out the comics cover dated June 2010, when my older child was an infant, which is kind of when things really got derailed in terms of my reading. Then I'll pull out a couple of these 72 books. So I pulled out this Superboy, and one of the things that I liked about this is, you know, the goofiness of it, where he pulls out somebody who's pretending to be Jules Verne out of this kind of time capsule. And there are also a couple of reprints in here. This was the point in time from mid-71 to mid-72 where DC had these 25-cent 48-page books plus the cover. And so they were double-sized, and they had usually the feature story and then the reprints. And So I enjoyed reading this. It kind of brought me back to that time period. And also, I like the fact that this is in really nice shape. I mean, it's like an 8.5. I'm not going to get it graded. It's not a 9.8, but it is a pretty book. And there is that aspect of the quality of the book. There is a little bit more joy that I get out of finding an old book in nicer condition than, something that is, falling apart. So there's that aspect to it. Then there was another book, and these are harder to find. And it took me a while to track this one down in decent shape. And that is Girls Love Stories 166 from February of 1972. These romance books are harder to find. And this particular one is got a little more significance because of the young lady in the wheelchair on the cover. She fell in love, and then they decided to take some time apart to see if they really cared about each other. They had a whirlwind romance. And then she's trampled in the subway or something, and she wanted to become a painter, and so she ends up crippled. And will Matt still love her? So there are 3 stories. I think all these stories are new stories in this particular romance book, but I'm not certain. So then I started reading the June 2010 books, and there were a couple books I really enjoyed. There was a Justice Society book, which I'd set aside, which is like a Fourth Reich story where Dr. Midnight is in this alternate reality where the Nazis won World War II and they've taken over, and or maybe it's neo-Nazis. Anyway, goes back to DC Special 29, the origin of the Justice Society, where Hitler had control of the Spear of Destiny, and that meant that whatever land the Axis controlled, that superheroes with supernatural powers or were susceptible to supernatural things like Superman would be ineffective and essentially be turned. So in this one, it's kind of the same thing. And Superman saving somebody and his powers go out in mid-flight and he's, badly, badly hurt. And they're holding these public executions. So really an interesting story. I think James Robinson did it. But anyway, then I started reading the Prelude to Brightest Day. This comes right after Blackest Night, and a lot of the heroes, which happens all the time in comic books, come back from the dead. So we end up following all their stories, including Dead Man, who should be dead and no longer is. And then there was a companion piece that I read, which is the Justice League of America, number 44, in which, and there's crossover here, which Jade, right there, the daughter of Golden Age Green Lantern, Alan Scott, comes back. Mark Bagley, art, and James Robinson story. So this was just like stuff I really enjoy taking the time to read. And then I started doing some cleanup around the house. I've actually started this project a little while ago. And one of the first videos that I featured on the channel was picking up a collection of Batman comic books. It was a fellow, and I paid well for it, but it's still a good deal. As I'm going through the books, the value has held. Probably not as good as the deals originally because I'm not selling these. So other than upgrades, these are staying in the personal collection. It was every issue of Batman from 150 through 500, every single issue, including all the keys. So the bigger Bronze Age keys I had gotten graded, but not all of them. And I definitely have in my own personal collection that I bought, because I wasn't collecting Batman religiously as a kid. I was collecting more of the team titles at the time, and then I was adding new titles rather than old titles. So anyway, I have Batman 400 on, so I kind of have to compare the 400 to 500. And this had been sitting in an office, a room in the house that we're now kind of clearing out. So I said, okay, let me go through these comics. Now, good and bad. The bad was that for some of the Silver Age books, because I'm located in the New York City area, some of the Palisades Park coupons were clipped. And there were also a couple of other things that were clipped, a couple pages missing here and there. So those are just books I have notes that I'm going to want to upgrade, but I'm not in a huge rush. They're placeholders right now. Palisades Park was an amusement park that was across the Hudson River from New York City in northern New Jersey that existed probably until about 1968. I never went to it, just kind of missed that. But they had a relationship, I guess, with DC Comics, and they would almost monthly have ads in there. So often those ads are clipped. So I was going through and just grading the books, which I hadn't really done because I wasn't reselling the books. They were just part of the personal collection. And when I filter through everything else, I'll get around to, you know, attacking the personal collection. But I wanted to make sure that I had the grades and any defects in books. So if I came across books at flea markets and collections and what have you, I could determine if they were upgrades or not. So, and that's kind of the thing, you know, letting the hobby fund itself. You buy a collection, has some books you want to keep. They may be upgrades over what you have, which still enables you to sell the book. You're just selling the lower copy. But at any rate, so then I started going through and got to the point where it was when I started collecting comics, and specifically these 100-pagers. Now, this is a dual book, right? It's really interesting. It's both Batman 238 and it's also DC 8. We can see right up here, DC 8. The DC 100-pagers, some of them were only DC dash whatever, and some of them were the same number as the later ones as a book. But one of the things about this, and what was so intriguing to me as a kid, and I think still is, number one, it's a Neil Adams cover, and it's a wraparound cover. Right? And it's really a nice shape, except it had this big crease with a tear in the back corner. But anyway, and it has all of these characters, the Legion of Superheroes, and the Super Pets, and the Doom Patrol, Plastic Man, Aquaman, Sargon the Sorcerer, right? And what they did was on the inside back cover, they give you a key. Now, sometimes, because these early 100-pagers had no ads, and sometimes they just had the super specs in the back where they'd have like the origins, text pieces of each of the characters that appeared. But here, the inside front cover is a table of contents. We also have the Golden Age Atom. And then there are so many different stories in here. And as a kid, this was great because I knew who Batman was, but I'm sure I might have known the Legion, but I'm pretty sure if I picked this book up, I didn't know who the Doom Patrol was or Plastic Man or Sargon. And we get a Batman story to lead. And then we get Doom Patrol. This is actually a reprint of My Greatest Adventure 80, the first appearance of the Doom Patrol in their origin, which is awesome. And then we go on to Plastic Man. And a lot of these indicated in where it was from. Police Comics 14, December 1942. So that's awesome. And then after that, we get a Sargon the Sorcerer story. They did not indicate where this was from, which is interesting. Sometimes they indicated it in the letters page. And then a Golden Age Atom story. Never published before. So that's, this a new Golden Age Atom story, which was really interesting. And I'm trying to pinpoint the art on this. I should know off the top of my head who it is, but I'm not positive. Is it? Anyway. And then, those are very short stories. There's only 6 pages. And then we get Aquaman story with Ramona Fredone art. Adventure Comics 276, September 1960. And we also get a Legion of Superheroes story from Adventure Comics 324, September 1964. I think that's John Forte art. And then usually at the end, is that it? Yeah. At the end, we get another Batman story. So these I loved. Loved. So the DC 100-pagers, and I've been collecting them. So there's the run of DC 100-page Super Spectacular. That this book is. And just to come on. Yeah, it was issue number 4, which was, there was no issues 1 through 3. Issue number 4, which was Weird Mystery Tales with the Burning Wrightson cover. And then it ran through issue number 22. And I think it was the first 3 only, 4, 5, and 6, that were, did not have another, number, that they weren't connected to another book. Actually, no, there was a later one too, a few later ones that were just DC whatever. So then, about a year or so later, a lot of DC's Prime books just had for about a year. So this runs, not that one. This one's for just over a year. All of these Batmans, and this was all part of the collection, these are all pretty decent shape. Especially, it's harder to find these 100 pages in nice shape. But issue 254, and I remember having this one as a kid. 255. 256. 257. Now, when you get to these point, 258, and I think it's this one. I think this is the first mention of Arkham Hospital. 259 with the Shadow. 260 and 261. So those were the 100 pagers in the Batman run. And I was so taken back when I went through these. They started off as only 50 cents and they went up to 60 cents. But 50 cents, even back in the day, I mean, it was just a great value, right? And what you would get on the cover, you get such a preview of it that you'd see Batman in the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, and the future, right? So when the earlier issue was all reprints, but this one has ads. Cover by Nick Cardy, of course. It's 1974 book. You get the table of contents, and then it starts off with a new story. I think pretty much, at least all the superhero titles had new stories. So we got a new Man-Bat story with Irv Novick art. And then all of the other stories are Batman related. And you just, you get such a sense of these different eras of how they looked as a kid. And it became a norm for me as a kid to see that this was what it was. And one of the other fun things, I think they should have it in here. Then you get a 50s story. The first one was a 1940s story, a 1950s story. They had behind the scenes, then a 1960s story where Bob Kane is still signing it, and you get Batman introducing it, like in the current day. If you read Gotham Gang lineup in the January Detective, you know that a few years back, Alfred, Bruce Wayne's butler, was apparently killed. It was soon after this, while I was setting up a memorial foundation in Alfred's name, that I ran into perhaps the most fantastic villain I've ever fought. You'll find out something about him in this adventure from the sizzling 60s. And, who's he fighting? Is that Killer Moth? Yeah. I don't know if he's the most fantastic villain he's ever fought, but whatever. And then we get a Robin story. This, I think, is a new one by Dick Dillon and Murphy Anderson art. Buried in here. And then we always look at this Batman Oddities. We get these little kind of text pages. And then Batman, the Son of the Joker. This is, I think, from the early 60s. Issue 140-something, probably, where they told stories in the future of, I think it was Dick Grayson and Batman's son as the new Batman and Robin. They get Roman numerals on their uniforms. And I guess in this one, Joker has a son, too. So you get a Bat Maze. Fortunately, somebody did fill it out. No good. Pencil. Maybe I'll erase that. And then we get one more story. So that is really kind of fun. And, I'm going to, at some point, enjoy reading all these. I have been picking up as many of the 100-pagers as I can. And just about every book that DC published at the time had, for about a year, from like early 74 to early 75, ran 100-pagers. And the more difficult ones are the romance ones and the horror and war books. Those are a little bit harder to find. The superhero ones aren't that difficult to get a hold of. So anyway, that is the video for today. A little bit of a change of pace. I wanted to do something that was a little more just based on the hobby rather than the finances of it, and the enjoyment of the hobby. The reading of the comic books, the collecting of that, and that nostalgia that brings us back to childhood. I do have a kind of ridiculously good memory, so I'll often recognize covers that I know I had as a kid, and I'll search those out. And there's sometimes like just a random book that I only got one issue of, like Marvel's Frankenstein, or one of those X-Men reprint issues, prior to issue number 94. And there's also Sabrina the Teenage Witch book that I have to figure out which one it is and track it down. So that's just, it's when you get into, the more you get into collecting, the more you have to find something that still brings out the thrill of the hunt in the hobby for you. And, I did, get this huge Batman collection, which basically set me on this journey of trying to get earlier and earlier issues of Batman. I do have a reasonable goal of having every issue from 100 forward, and I'm probably only about a couple dozen issues away from completing that. So that'll be fun, and then I have to look at the first 99. That'll be a little more challenging. So anyway, let me know what you think about this video. A little bit of a change of pace. Like you thank you for stopping by and spending some time. And did you have any of these books? Do you want any of these books? If you do, you can't get them from me. So anyway, this is Jim saying there's a couple of videos you can watch here. And this is Jim saying until next time, enjoy your comics.